What if Here Comes Team Rocket, but for everything? Well, my friend, that is what Shining Imakuni does. This card is the star of today's video as we explore what gameplay with this in any format it was available would have been like. Or as some of my YouTube contemporaries would say, how good was Shining Imakuni actually? I started this video by mentioning Here Comes Team Rocket, a card that didn't actually see very much play. It was a 1 of or a 2 of at the most in combo decks because it lets you know exactly where your combo pieces are so that you could prize into them faster. It could also be useful information to know exactly where your opponent's pieces were so that you could adjust your playstyle accordingly. Shining Imakuni is a trainer card that kicks it up a notch. Flash! With a dazzling feeling, everything is lit up. Each player plays with his or her prize cards face up for the rest of the game. Then, each player turns over his or her deck and plays with it face up. Don't be embarrassed. It's a very important note here that don't be embarrassed is part of the card text, so it is a requirement of this card upon play. And of course, yeah, playing the entire game post this card being played means that you each know what's in your prize cards and you each know what card is on top of your deck, what's going to be drawn next. It adds an interesting element to the gameplay. This is a joke card like all the other Imakuni cards, and this was a P promo that you could get through the Pokemon fan club. The text at the bottom says that it is not tournament legal. But what if? Because unlike Here Comes Team Rocket, I think that Shining Imakuni would have been a playable card, or at least more playable. But before we get into playability, I do want to take a second to appreciate the joke of the card. It's playing off of the Shining Pokemon that had previously shown up in the Neo block, which did include the shiny versions of Pokemon. They were very rare, highly sought after, but they were mostly in silhouette only, so you didn't actually get to appreciate the Pokemon itself. It was kind of just this dark figure against a colorful background. In some artworks, it could look pretty cool. In other cases, not so much. Shining Imakuni took that idea and said, well, what if we not only take that Shining name and make the joke of just literally shining a light on the Pokemon, but did something that was needed for that artwork, which was brighten it up so that you could actually see the subject of the artwork. You might even consider this to be the shiny version of Imakuni, since within games and card art, he's usually seen with either black or red outfit. Anyway, how would this look for gameplay? It's worth noting that you wouldn't flip everything over until this card is played, so you would have to draw into it first if it wasn't in your opening hand. And it doesn't reveal everything. Players aren't able to see each other's cards in hand. Once Shining Imakuni is played, you'll be able to see everything that your opponent is drawing off the top of their deck, so you have some information regarding what's in their hand, but everything prior to that is still a secret. But having that knowledge of each other's decks and all of the draws occurring after that, as well as their prize cards, would clearly benefit some playstyles more than others. The first of which that comes to mind is Control. Vintage decks already have an archetype that takes advantage of seeing the top card of your opponent's deck utilizing Mankey's Peak. Once you've looked at the top card of your opponent's deck, you can determine, is that too dangerous for my tactics? Do I want to get rid of that card, or is it a dud that I actually want my opponent to draw into? Mankey could be played next to Shining Imakuni so that you actually gain the knowledge of what's in their hand. If you're keeping track of what cards they've drawn and the position of those cards in their hand, you'll be able to peek at the cards that you haven't seen yet and reveal some of that secrecy. But the main purpose of Peek is to just look at your opponent's top draw, and if it's something that you don't want going into their hand, you would find a way to either discard that card or make them shuffle their deck. Attaching a single fire energy to Fossil Moltres and just discarding the top card is an absolutely devious way to accomplish this. I do have full deck lists for this type of control deck on the channel. Go check them out. And that's just an example of what you could do with something that includes the oldest of vintage formats like base Fossil. Shining Imakuni was issued in 2002 as part of the E-card block, if you couldn't already tell by the giant barcode on the card. So it would also be playable in E-card formats in WotC 20 or even in the Ruby and Sapphire block where Control was alive and well. You had cards like Vileplume EX and Muck EX that could completely prevent your opponent from playing certain types of cards or activating the abilities of certain cards. So if you could see the top card of their deck and know exactly what they were drawing into and what types of cards they were drawing into, you could easily adjust your playstyle without any concerns, which puts you at a huge advantage against your opponent that isn't playing control. The Ruby Sapphire block also had a ton of counter cards that were used in lock decks that could completely prevent you from taking certain actions, like Battle Frontier or ATM Rock, which could devolve your Pokemon. Game 1, you'd be able to see the top card of your opponent's deck and their prize cards as soon as you play a Shining Imakuni, so you would know what type of deck they're playing and what counter cards you need to prioritize when playing your own search and draw cards. You could couple this strategy with a powerful supporter like Oracle that just lets you go and put whatever 2 cards you want on top of your deck, controlling what you are going to draw into, and then use a Poke Power or another trainer that lets you draw into those cards immediately. If you did this Oracle trick before you played your Imakuni, you'd actually be drawing into 2 cards that are secret to your opponent, which would be an advantage all on its own. And this type of strategy isn't just for controlling your opponent's draws, it can also be extremely helpful for doing exactly what Oracle does and helping you draw into the cards you want even faster and more consistently. A deck like Speedrill just wants to draw into its combo pieces as quickly and efficiently as possible. Playing Shining Imakuni would let you know if any of those pieces are in your prize cards and exactly where. And if the top card of your deck is a card that will not be helpful for what the deck is trying to accomplish, you know that before you play a card that is drawing directly from the top, you can play something else that'll have you search out a card and then shuffle your deck like a lure ball. Any hyper aggro deck is going to want to know what's on top of their deck for the exact purpose I already said, in making sure that you are getting to your power pieces as quickly and efficiently as possible. If Shining Imakuni were tournament legal, I think that it would have changed gameplay quite a bit. I think the meta would have had to been ready for it, or at least account for the possibility of it seeing play. I think it would have definitely skewed the metagame towards more control and hyper aggro, just because of the effect it could have and the knowledge that players have of the board state at all times. But we'll never really know, unless of course someone decides to just introduce this to their card pool. Looking at you WotC20 guys, what would this card look like at your tournaments? I want to hear everyone's thoughts down in the comments. Would this card have been a game changer, or would it just have been a niche dud, kind of like Here Comes Team Rocket was? What decks would want to play this card, and what decks would be most scared of this card? Stay tuned to the channel for plenty more vintage Pokemon TCG content. I appreciate you tuning into this one, and I'll see you on the next one.